Highlighted.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be with you this time. I'm very happy that you can all join us in this new campaign for the 5PtoGrow. This time we're going to be talking about the Interamerican Youth Involvement Policy on the road towards the empowerment of young people. This is also a very important policy and very important strategic topic in our region. So I'm glad to be join you all. My name is Laura Delgado. I'm from El Salvador, and I work as a support. I work supporting the Interamerican office here in Panama. So we'll start. You can ask questions anytime. And joining me is Susie Salguero, and she will be supporting me with any question or comments. So thank you very much. Am I doing well, Susie?
Yes, everything is good. Everything is good. Go ahead.
Great. So let's begin. Let's start. First of all, I want to give you a big background or context about this policy. And to start, I want to mention...
I'm sorry, you need to share your screen and start the presentation.
Sorry. I thought I was already...
No. Sharing the screen.
Here.
Yes.
Share.
Yes.
Okay.
Put the presentation and... Yes.
Yes. Sorry, I thought it was already done. But then youth involvement policy. I want to give you a context. I want to go back to the World Scout Conference in Curitiba, Brazil in 2011, where the youth involvement in decision-making in National Scout Organization and within was a really important topic. And at this conference, all the National Scout Organization were requested to adopt the vision of the participation of youth. And they were all invited and they were all asked and requested exactly to create and identify opportunities for the youth to participate in decision making. So it was recommended that every NSO establish objectives towards youth involvement so that the progress and achievement can be measured during time. So since 2011, this topic it was detected as very important, as a strategic priority, and the NSOs were encouraged to start doing this and involving the youth in decision making. So at this time we want to discuss about the policy, and to begin, we can speak about the purpose. The purpose of this policy in our region is to generate guidelines for the youth involvement in our region. This policy is intended to serve as a reference for the National Scout organizations to develop their own national policy of youth participation. So this is a result of that request that was made for all the National Scout organization, and at regional level, it was decided that it was important to have some guidelines and some references on how to develop national policies. So this document, it has been using through several years, and it recognizes the importance of youth involvement in decision making as a key element of the Scout method, and it is intended to strengthen and ensure involvement of the youth in all the levels of the Scout movement. It's important to mention who are subjects of this policy. This policy is addressed to all the National Scout organizations. I'm referring to the Interamerican policy. It is addressed to all the national Scout organizations, and this means that it involves all the structures and all the internal levels in the National Scout organization. We can mention all the teams, youth program, adults in scouting, communication, institutional level, all the instance or technical instances that supports the National Scout organizations are subjects of the policy. Also, this reaches the different bodies at the regional level. We can name the Interamerican Scout Conference, Interamerican Scout Committee, and the World Scout Bureau, which particularly in this time is the Interamerican region and the Interamerican office. All these structures that are intended to support the National Scout organizations, such as regional networks, any teams or networks or mechanisms that will be created in the future. It's important to be involved in the policy. So, important fact about this is that youth involvement should be understood within a cross-alignment context. This means that passes through all these bodies that I was mentioning. All the instances and level of the structure of the National Scout organizations must be cross-lined with these topics, and this purpose and these important topics must be undertaken in all the actions and efforts necessary to generate and promote the growth of development of the youth involvement in the different fields which these bodies are supporting. And in this matter, I wanted to clarify that when we speak about youth, in particular, subject of the policy, we are talking about recipients of the program in the Scout unit. This means all the individuals from the minimum age that can join the National Scout organization up to the age when they become adults in their country. Also, subject of the policy are the young adults, which are individuals, recipients of the program in the Scouts unit, but that have reached the maximum legal age. From the legal age until the maximum age permitted to participate in the Scout method or in a section in the National Scout organization. And we also have to understand that it's a subject of the policy, adults, young adults, which are the Scouts that have ended being a recipient of the youth program, and when they get involved with a responsible or a responsibility or a role adult in the Scout movement, but they are under 30 years of age. So when we speak about youth and the subject of this policy, I repeat, youth, young adults, and adults. I want to define and to mention youth involvement as a definition, as a concept. This is the process by which young people, based on the values of the Scouts and Law Promise, commit themselves and are an active part in decision making at the unit level, institutional level, and or the community, contributing to the achievement of the mission of Scout movement. So as I was already mentioned, it's when the youth gets involved and gets commitments on the part of decision making in all the levels of the Scout movement, from the sections, from every unit, until institutional level, and including external relationships with the community. So to continue, our youth involvement policy mentions and requests and invites all the National Scout organization that when they develop their own national policy, they must include these following principles, which are first one, that is based on the rights. This means that the youth involvement should be taken as a right for the young members, because they have the right to have a voice on the decision that affects their lives. The youth involvement policy should be inclusive. This means that this must be a joint effort of all the decision-making structures and organisms of the WOSM, and should consider the views and proposals from all the levels of the organization, from the Scout unit up to the World Conference. All these instances should be involved. Third, it's transversal. It means that it crosses all the structures. It must be participatory. That means that it should be designed to be open to everyone. Co-responsible means that this is a joint effort and everyone must be taken into consideration, and it should include youth, but also adults to develop. We also have to mention integrality. It should be equitable, progressive. This means that it would take time, and you should set a starting date and finishing date as a goal, and it should be addressed by steps. And we have the principles. We also have to be accessible. This means that it should consider location, economic status, cultures, social levels, everything about these considerations of accessibility for everyone. And also, it's important that should not have a limitation on who should access to this. It cannot be interpreted in the sense of restricting other activities or initiatives. It should go all the way, going through every activity, event that Scout movements involves. In the other hand, when we speak about the youth involvement policy, we have to take into consideration the following purposes, which are, first one, youth rights. This means that the youth have the right to participate and make their voice heard in decisions that affects them. And this is related to the Conventions of the Rights of the Child of the UN, which says that when adults are making decisions that affect the children have the right to say what they think. And their opinion should be taken into consideration. And the adults, on the other hand, are encouraged to listen to them, to their opinions. Secondly, we have democracy and relevant representation. This means that it should involve youth in the planning and the management, in all the activities that will contribute to youth engagement, because this will be based on the reality of the youth. And who better rather than youth to decide how they want to be represented, and this as a result we will have a better democracy. This is related with the third purpose, which is youth perspective. This means, as it says, that perspective of the youth should be taken into consideration because it usually they usually contribute with new and fresh perspective rather than the traditional ways of operating and of thinking and of doing. So in terms of contribution, they will come out with new and more creative approaches. Also, as a purpose, we have to mention the development of competencies. It's very important to consider that this is the perfect opportunity when the youth can develop more skills, can get more experience in management procedures. This experience will be very valuable and will contribute directly to a positive change in their communities. So it's very important to recognize that when we are developing our youth policies, national youth policies, this will be an excellent and a perfect opportunity for them to gain more skills and experience. Also, it's important to mention as a purpose that the improvement of democracy and dynamism of the association. By this, we mean that taking into consideration that most of the leaders on the National Scout organization are under the range of 30 years, the majority, that are working directly in the local level, they should be involved and they should be heard. They should be listened. Because if they cannot express their expectations, they cannot express what they need, they do not have something to say about the strategy of the management of the association, we can encounter with the big danger of losing this context, with losing this support, and at the end, if they are not taken into consideration or they are not heard, we can lose their motivation and soon they can abandon the Scout movement. Lastly, we have to mention that the projecting of the Scout movement towards the community. As a big purpose of this youth involvement policy is the image and the growth of how the Scout movement is normally being observed and how we show to the community. And by this, we have to say that we have to show how young people is being taking part of big efforts and how they are fully participating on decision-making processes. Sorry. I hope I'm doing good. I don't want to hurry, but about the youth involvement policy, we also have to mention the fields of the youth involvement, which are externally and internally. And by this, these are two ways where the youth involvement policy can be developed or can be operated. Internally is all the decision-making bodies inside the organization, and externally is all the opportunities that are being developed outside the Scout movement, directly in the community. I'm going to talk more deeply. I'm going to go deeply on this topic later. To continue, I want to discuss about the process for the approval of the national policy. This is normally just a guideline. This is a ideally process that we suggest for all the National Scout organizations. It begins with getting to know more about the world and the regional policies, and this is a task that commits to the executive teams and the government bodies. First, we have to know more about the policies. We should discuss it. We should review them and get to know all the definition and concepts that are important for this matter. Second step, we can start drafting or formulating the national policy, which normally or which we invite you all that it should be in the same line with the world and regional policy. Because this is the big purpose of having the regional policy, which is intended to be a guideline. So it should be, you should stick with this model, and it will be an easier job. This is a matter that corresponds to the executive teams, but these executive teams should involve young people. Third step, you should present it to the national. You should present the national policy to the government bodies because they are the ones who approves it. This is a task that should be done by the executive teams, the ones that formulate it. And this is a step that sometimes can take long or not, but if you present it in the best way, you emphasize on the importance of this policy, you keep insisting on how this will help youth, how this will improve our youth program, you should not have any issue on getting the approval from the government bodies. The fourth step is getting the approval, which comes from the government bodies, as I was saying. And lastly, but maybe the most important step, is sharing the policy with all the members. I want to emphasize, and I repeat it, that's why I repeat it, that this policy involves all the structures, all the levels of the National Scout organization. So everyone should be aware of the existence of this policy, of this newly national policy. You should share it with everyone, maybe do some social media campaigns, you can do some forums, you can do some events, you can do activities, you can participate on any event or training and talk about it, share it and promote it, and make everyone notice and everyone be aware of the importance and how this is going to work in your National Scout organization. So I think this is the most important. We don't normally invest enough time on sharing the policy. The policies are not hidden. How I can say it? It should not be hidden. It should be shared. It should be available to everyone. Susie, do we have questions?
We don't have any questions, but I just want to stress out that also this part, why are we talking about this, is that it is important that especially this policy can come from young people, and they can do their own groups and start understanding the different materials that we have as a region level and as world level as well, and try to bring them now into their NSOs and try to understand what applies to them and what does not. In work with youth program as well, because if not, they're gonna be able. But this should be an initiative from young people just to express out their own feelings, and that is why we're talking about this today.
Yes, you're right. This, as I already mentioned, this is a matter that corresponds to all the national structures. So it should be a joint effort. All the opinions should be taken into consideration, and but we really encourage youth, all these Prover Scouts, Venture Scouts, to review the existing materials, understand it, as Susie said, as Susie mentioned, ask for help, and not until you get the idea, not until you are ready, or even though you're not, you can start formulating, drafting materials, and present it to the executive teams. Because the executive teams also can help you out. This would be a joint effort, and youth, it's allowed to be heard, and it's allowed to develop their own stuff, because it's a matter of youth.
Okay,
So yes.
Once the national policy is approved, we are gonna start implementing the models, right?
Yes.
So we can continue.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That was the next slide that I was going to show you. It's about the models. These models should be included in the policy. This is the way that the youth involvement policy acts. Am I right? It's like the way how it operates. It's the way how the policy goes from being text. It goes from, it's the way that the policy goes from being just content to be actually, how to say it, space, how it operates. So in the Interamerican region, we suggest that we suggest 4 models, which are youth networks, youth advisors, youth forums, and capacity building. These are 4 educational platforms where youth involvement is highly related, and this is where the youth can get involved and can get part and can actually be part of the decision making and how they develop more capacities. So youth network is, as the name, it's a network. It's a network which interconnects youth. It keeps youth in contact to share experiences, knowledges, materials, resources. And in the green side, we have the youth advisors with its kind of advisory space. And it's how we encourage to bring the voice of the youth to the government bodies, and the objective of this model is to increase the youth involvement in decision making of the organization and encourage the representation of the youth, well, the representation of the organization in external and internal events and activities, to have representation of the youth. On the other hand, the third model, we have the youth forums. The youth forums are spaces where youth is invited to discuss issues that are relevant to them. They can exchange experiences, and they are provided of opportunities to gain skills on the matter of future decision-making bodies. And they can also develop some recommendations for the national assemblies, or in our case, for the Interamerican Scout Conference. The fourth model we are suggesting is capacity building. This is a matter of that focuses on develop of skills and abilities for the youth, for all the members of the ENSO. I want to get deeply in the youth network model. This is a model of permanent cooperation and interconnection among young people at all the levels of National Scout organizations. This is an opportunity to exchange between individuals, groups, or institutions to exchange best practices among its members and to promote the shared work experiences. Also, an objective is to promote the participation on the development of materials that promotes the exchange of information among young people about international cooperation, about leadership, about social media, about social impact, any matter that is related to youth, that is important to youth. Also, it's a tool for the young people to provide influence in the decision making within the Scout movement. This is network. The network is coordinated by young people, and it normally involves coordinating teams of focal points of the network. This is not a separate thing of the youth program. It's directly involved. It's directly related to youth program. It should not work as a separate thing. And we encourage all the National Scout organization to develop this model, to try it, because it's a very attractive model for the youth, because now with everything with the technology is very easy to be connected, but we should take advantage of these ways of being communicated with everyone. So now we don't have any limits, and we should take advantage to promote youth participation, to promote the exchange of best practices, the exchange of information, and even this should be a tool which promotes the collaborative efforts, collaborative work towards any mission and social impact in general. Also, I want to stress about, sorry for the English, capacity building model. This is, as it says, the development of skills and abilities. It's an opportunity to exchange of experience. This is opportunities where young people is trained in leadership and decision-making matters. It develops diverse competencies through which young people can serve their NSO and their community. It motivates the participants to assume responsibilities in the institutional level. They are encouraged to take important part of the institutional level to make their voice to be heard. It develops awareness and personal commitment to impact their communities. It also can be intended to share experiences about leadership, and we highly encourage every National Scout organization to implement it and to replicate these opportunities everywhere. We can mention a current implemented example is the ILT, Interamerican Leadership Training, which is directly related to this capacity building model. This is for the ones who are not aware of this. This is training which reunites young people from all the countries of our region, and they get trained in the matters of decision making, solution making, decision making, and any matter related to youth involvement. They are hardly encouraged to develop projects towards social impact, and they are highly encouraged to participate and assume responsibilities in their National Scout organizations. This is a model that is currently being replicated in some National Scout organization, but if you need more information, you can get in touch with us. And this model right now, it's very important, and it sometimes takes a lot of work, but should be encouraged from the youth. They should ask for these spaces to get trained, to get more abilities and skills that will serve them to involve in their communities, in the schools, in every external body, because this is like an example, like an interesting opportunity to gain more knowledge. I will not get deeper in the other models because of the time, but I will continue now with the fields of the youth involvement. In this matter, we have to discuss three important pathways or fields where the youth involvement is considered it's been taking part. We have to speak about the unit level, the institutional level, and the community level. Within the Scout movement, we have the unit level and the institutional level. This is our internal matters. We speak about the experience of the participation on the unit levels, which is direct connection with the application of the youth program. On the other hand, we have the experience of the participation in other levels of the movement, meaning local, national, and international level. And the youth involvement in the community is the participation directly in the community, where the youth takes part of the communities and acts as active citizens. To mention youth involvement in the unit level, this is, I want to explain with a very simple example. This is a basic structure as a small group. It operates as the patrol system, to say something, to example. This is a small group where peers are considered as equals and have the same status, even though they develop different roles. Because of this, the team system has been identified as the main tool for the participation of the young people in the Scout movement. The Scout unit, at the end, manage interaction and cooperation between primary groups. This small group is complemented with the unit assembly, which is the body that periodically evaluates the life and the progress of the unit and decides the objectives and the ground rules for the group life. Based on the Scout law and reference. Also, we have the unit council, which is the executive body of the unit that involves the team leaders and the adult responsibles of the unit. So this is an excellent example. The Scout unit, the patrol system. This is directly space where youth involvement is being applied. When the Scouts are being heard, their opinions are being heard and being taken in consideration when deciding the objectives they want to achieve, the activities they want to participate, the activities they want to develop, the services they want to develop, all the progression they want to achieve. Secondly, we have the youth involvement at institutional level. This is when young members at all levels are provided from learning opportunities other than those already offered by the Scout programs in their unit. This is an excellent mechanism to ensure that people are well trained, are involved in the administration and direction of the institution. Thereby, they can ensure that there is a generational change in a timely manner. We can mention two hands of these institutional level. We have on one part the organization itself, which are the professional structure that supports the Scouting movement. It satisfies the needs and provides it with services to ensure it endures over time. And in the other hand, we have all these resources and teams that are related to governance, administration, financial development, communication, operations, ethics, risk management, any other structure that is supporting directly the Scouting in their organization. These all opportunities can be very important for the youth, and it should always take into consideration their interests, turning their participation into a new educational experiences.
Good. So we just have one more question, and we are gonna have reaching our 5-minute goal, right?
Perfect. Yes.
So here we have a question. So this means that youth involvement actually happens more in the units, it happens more in the NSO level, or it happens more at regional level. How can we improve more youth involvement and more people to understand the youth involvement it's within the units?
Yes, that is a fact. Youth involvement, it's in the unit level. It begins at the unit level. And as we always say, says the unit level, it should be the most important because it is the first approach, is the first opportunity that Scouts are providing to be heard, to make decisions. And this is the first experience they have in relation to this. So we should not consider the institutional level or the regional level as the only youth involvement opportunity. Youth involvement is within all the levels. So to answer the question about how to make the people to understand this, we encourage you all to develop your National Scout policies, youth involvement policies, which it should stress this out. You can do some campaigns. I don't know what else, Susie, you can
Yes.
mention.
You can also mention this topic as well in the regular activities.
Yes, exactly.
It makes scouts aware that they're the ones that are choosing here. And
Yeah.
the very beginning principle of the scout method as well as being participative about it.
Yes, when they participate and when they decide which activities they want to develop, when they get reunited in the Scouts Council or whatever you call it, when you reunite the leaders of each of the teams of the unit, and they are being heard, they evaluate, how do they express their feelings, they express their thoughts. This is youth involvement also. And the adults should give the opportunity to do that. But sometimes we are not aware of that we are doing it, that we are already involving the youth in the scout level, in the unit level. So
yes,
this is a fact.
Well, we're reaching our 2-minute goal.
Yes, just the last slide is that for this process, youth should identify needs, find solutions, should make decisions, should plan, coordinate, and implement actions, and should establish common roles and evaluate the results. These are some other steps that you should consider when you develop your national policy. End to end, we want to share the existing material we have. This is the document of the models, youth involvement models that we suggest on our regional level. You can download it in this link. You can go directly to scout.org and search for these documents that are available to everyone. And also you can download the regional policy, which goes more deeply on this matter. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Laura, for joining us, and thank you, our audience, for staying here. Keep in tune. Tomorrow we still have 2 more presentations, youth program and institutional development. Thank you for joining this session, and share it with your scouting friends.
So